Hi, my name is Filipa and welcome to my channel Awkward the Talk, where I help parents gain the confidence to teach their children sexual education at home. Today's topic is, why do parents feel so awkward about answering these questions? And it got me thinking that it has not always been so easy to gain information about sexual education. Actually, there's a lot. It's not been easy for a certain point, and now there's just a lot of information out there, and it's very difficult to weed out what is good information, what is bad information, and that is one point that has to do with whether there is information, whether information around is good and adequate for your children and your lifestyle. And the other point that I thought of is it's got a lot to do with society, how we view sexuality, and specifically the sexuality of children. It's very easy for you to go into any bookstore where you are and to look for maternity books that will explain to you where everything about your child's development, from what age they should be talking, what age they should be smiling, what age they should be doing maths quiz. There's a lot of information about the physical and a little bit more now about the emotional development of children, but there is almost nothing out there that concerns itself with the sexual development of children. That has to do with our view as a society of children as these angelical beings who are inherently good and who have no interest in sex, and that sex is this evil thing that we kind of grow into. And this sends out a lot of mixed messages, which leaves parents with a very big knowledge gap. So there's this societal issue, this unease to accept the reality that children have sexuality. And by sexuality, I will explain again that sexuality is not just about sex, and that it encompasses sex, the sex act, and genitals, but also questions of identity, how we relate to one another, how we view the world, and how we view ourselves, and how we view ourselves in this context that we are able to see around us. There is the lack of information, the societal pressure to be one way or the other, and third, I think, touches on a very in each one of us on a very personal level. Everybody has their own experience of sexuality, and we all have our own stories of where we learned about sexuality and who taught it to us and how. And these have impacted our sexuality, how we express it, and now as parents, how you transmit this information to your children. I was thinking before doing this short video about a friend of mine who is a very knowledgeable, very forward-thinking guy who has 2 children, and who I had been working with to do some design on my menstrual hygiene project. And he confessed to me as we were doing the logos and things like that, that his eldest daughter got her period, and that his wife wasn't home. It was just him, and that he panicked. We had this is a man who knew all the factual things around menstruation, but then when his child got her period, he just panicked and he didn't know what to do, and he said, "Well, talk to mom, okay? We just wait until she gets home." And I think that speaks to to our more intimate relationship with this topic, and why do we feel this way? So very few people our age, 30s, actually got good and adequate sexual education. Our sexual education was done mainly in 3-4 varieties. So one was silence, where parents did not speak of this subject at all, and they left it for society, the school system, something to impart knowledge on their children about sexuality. The other method was fear, where we created this environment where sex was a very hostile thing, that it caused unwanted pregnancies and sexually transmitted diseases, and messages that we were receiving at the time was, if you have sex you will die, and this kind of fear environment that was to dissuade us from having sex. And we know that it didn't do a very good job. If anything, it just exacerbated the problem, because then teenagers were less likely to use protection because they didn't know where to go to get it, or if they knew where it existed, they were too shy to buy it or to acquire it. So there's this silence, this fear, or thirdly, this element of shame, where you just didn't talk about these things because they were dirty, or they were a sin, and good people, or proper people, proper girls especially, did not talk about the sex thing. And the fourth method that we got of sexual education was just in biology class, when we spoke about reproduction. When I remember when I was in grade 11, and I was in a biology class, and there was a girl who said to the teacher, "Oh, miss, I think we were studying the reproductive system," and she said, "Oh, miss, I think we should teach the boys where the clitoris is." And my teacher's reply was, "This is a biology class, and this is the reproductive system, and we're not in a sexuality class, so there's no need to talk about that." So it's these messages of hush hush, let's not talk too much about sex, and if we talk about it, it is in a very fear-mongering way, contrasted by a background of overly sexualized information that we get in the media, where everything is about sex sells. So how did we sell roll-ons? We had a sexy woman. How did we sell shampoo or whatever? We had a sexy man. So there's a very big dissonance between what we are saying to children and what they are seeing around them, right? And this causes all kinds of conflicting messages of hiding how they feel, hiding how their bodies are reacting, and not knowing how to interpret these signs, right? So I'd like you to take a moment to reflect on your own experience of sexual education, and think about what kind of messages did you receive, what are the things that stand out the most, and who did you get that information from, and how that impacted how you feel about sex, about relationships, about the opposite sex, about your own sex, and how that has shaped your experience of the world, and how that has shaped your sexuality and your sexual life. sexuality and sexual life are different, right? So sexuality will be how you relate to yourself and to others. And by others, I don't mean just a sexual partner, but by your friends and your family, and what kind of communication and conversations you're able to have with them, for example, and how you relate to the people who you have sex with, and how you feel when you have sex. Okay, so I'd like you to take a moment to think about that, and to really look into yourself and find out if you feel that you got positive mostly positive or mostly negative feedback from your environment at the time, how that shaped your relationships, and whether you would want your child to feel the same way about themselves and their bodies. So this is the interesting thing. It's not just, let's talk about sexual education for children in a vacuum where, we're just talking about these little beings that are learning about themselves and the world. No, let's think about this as a system, right? So how do you, as a parent, as a person, experience sexuality, and how does that affect how you talk about it and how you teach your children about it? I think this is very important, and I will challenge you to, especially if you had a negative experience of sexuality and how you learned about sexuality, I will challenge you to break that cycle. And how do you do that? You do that by informing yourself in channels like this one and gaining the knowledge about sexuality, its development, how children go through different phases, and what is actually super normal behavior that sometimes parents are very scared about. I get loads of messages about parents worried about their children touching their genitals, for example, or their little boys getting erections, and all of these are very, very normal circumstances. But because we don't have a lot of information about this, and these are taboo subjects, sex is taboo, child sexuality is taboo squared. So it is important that you acquire the knowledge and the skills to feel comfortable about talking to your children about these subjects. And I think that if you take on this challenge, please do, and embark on this new way of relating to your child, because it's not just one random conversation. Although the channel is called The Talk, it is exactly because of that. It's not just supposed to be one talk. It is supposed to be a relationship that you are building with your children, where you are in this constant feedback loop about teaching and learning about how, for example, teaching about the body, understanding how they feel about the body. And it's very interesting to engage in this dynamic. One of the tips that I have for parents when they are answering questions, for example, about these awkward topics, is if your child asks you a question that you feel is awkward or is sexuality related, like where do babies come from? How about you then return that question to your child? Where do you think babies come from? And they give you an answer, and it might not be the right answer, but that's okay, because you are engaging in dialogue. You are telling your child that this is an okay subject to talk about, and that it is a welcome subject. And then you engage in this conversation where you explain to them actually where they do come from, if they have some fairy tale idea where babies come from the stock, from, I don't know. Well, the different cultures have different metaphors for where babies come from, right? So I challenge you to engage in this conversation, and you will see that the more you talk about these things, the easier it is, and the less awkward it is, and the stronger your trust bond will become. when your children are very small, a lot of the sexual education that we are talking about is, for example, explaining to them the function of their body parts. And by body parts, I don't mean just their genitals. What does the penis do? What does the vagina do? No. The same way you would explain to your child what the functionality of their eyes or their nose, the mouth. When they ask you, or if they don't ask you, you have to push this information out, because it is normal information. For example, what is the penis for? The penis is for peeing. But you see, the adult brain is not thinking that. The adult brain is not thinking, this is, the penis is for peeing and the vulva has 2 little holes, and one of them is where the pee comes out of, and the other one is where babies come out of, or where the period will come out of. What we think is sex, So let's also reframe how we think about sexuality and how we think about our bodies, and these conversations will flow a lot more easily. So that is, it's just a little surface level explanation, for example, of the things that you will be asked as a parent, and then you will see that as the children grow and they develop emotionally, physically, mentally, that their questions will become more complex. If you start the sexual education early, it is a lot easier to answer the more awkward teenage questions. So before your child tells you, or you find out that they had a wet dream when they are about, say, 11 years old or 12 or 13, if you have already started having these conversations when they are 2, 3, 4, 5, by that time they will have known that is something that will happen, which is important, because they will get worried, because the idea or the fear is that they wet the bed, and they don't understand why they wet the bed, because they're big boys now, right? So if you start these conversations from an early age, then when it gets to this age, it's so much easier to talk about these things. Also, it is very important to get ahead of these questions. For 2 reasons. One is, if you don't answer these questions, somebody's going to answer them. And you cannot guarantee that the information that your children are getting is reliable or good at all. The other thing is, and it's related, is nowadays kids go on the computer and they just go onto Google and they type what they want to know about. So Google will tell them, and probably they will find some very inappropriate content as they are looking and searching for these questions. And you may be thinking like, oh, you're exaggerating, my children are a little bit too young to do that. But I have had cases of parents who come to talk to me because their 7-year-old has typed boobies or kissing on a search engine, and have looked at erotic images, for example. So these are things that you have to be mindful of, is that if you neglect your responsibility to give sexual education, that they will get education from a bunch of other places that will not be good. And if you get ahead of it, you are able to control the type of information that your children receive, and you're able to control the impact that these messages will have on them, even if they are exposed to material that they're not supposed to be exposed to. And most important of all, they are more likely to tell you if anything is wrong. If you are able to forge this deep connection with your child based on love, trust, and respect, they will come to you when they have a problem. They will come to you when they feel that something is just not quite right. So this is these are the big advantages of starting sexual education at home. And what this will do is that this will have a cascading effect on your child, on your child's child, and so on, because you will have changed how these future generations relate to themselves and relate to the subject of sexuality. Children who receive a strong and adequate sexual education are also less likely to engage in risk behavior and to also engage in abusive relationships. Why? Because since they were little kids, you have been telling them how they are supposed to treat their body, how they are supposed to treat their minds, how they're supposed to treat themselves, and what they can expect from others. So how they expect to be treated by others. So I hope this helped, and I hope that you take the time to really have a moment of introspection and think about how you came to understand sexuality and what kind of messages have shaped that, and how you would like maybe to change some points of this narrative and keep others, and choose what it is that you want to pass on to your children and what it is that you would like to rewrite for your children to have a better experience of themselves and of sexuality as children, teenagers, and then healthy adults. I hope this video helped you, and I hope you liked it. Please like, share, and don't forget to comment. If you have any questions and you feel too shy to leave them on the comments, please just DM me. Thank you so much. Bye.